Okay, so I made a video on why you should buy Slate Triggers without really explaining what the hell Slate Triggers are. It is a plugin that is used for replacing drum sounds when you've recorded a drum kit with multiple microphones. Like I have here, you can see I've got 6 tracks. I've got a kick, a snare, 3 toms, and 2 overheads. And so I'll just play the drum set for you. I will just play the and so I will just play the drum sound. So it's a very plain drum sound, and I don't have the rest of the song loaded into this Pro Tools session, but it's a pretty heavy, like alt rock track that I was sent to mix. And so these are very flat drum sounds. The guy that recorded them, he meant to do that. He kind of thought, well, I'll just give you more of a blank canvas and you can paint it however you want. And so what a trigger is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my kick and snare, and I'll label this kick trig and snare trig, and I'm going to add Slate Trigger to it. So it's a plugin, and I'm just going to go find one of the Trigger 2 settings. This is what comes with Trigger right here. And so Trigger really is for people who are recording multiple mics on a drum set, and you've got a mic in your kick drum or on your snare drum, and even on your toms. I don't really use them for toms, but you can. So what that does, so here, we'll just load one in and see what we get. So immediately that's going to make that sit a little bit more in an actual rock mix. And so this snare drum, I mean, honestly, no offense to the guy that recorded it, if he's listening, it sounds like cardboard. I mean, literal cardboard. So I'm going to bring over that trigger. I'm going to find a snare drum. And so we'll just go to the Trigger 2 snares. And there are all kinds of snare drum sounds. So if I listen to it, we'll do it over here. I'm going to bring up the volume of it. So that is a trigger right there. That's a pre-recorded sound. It's called a sample. And what this software does is it takes the wave file from your kick or your snare or your tom, whatever track you're going to use, and it triggers that sample. So whenever the drummer hit the snare, it's going to play a snare sample, which is very useful when the snare sounds like this. I mean, that's just a home studio basement recording, and you know, they weren't really thinking about tone. They were going to leave that for someone like me to make a tone. And so this is just very basic. So I'm just adding snare sounds. If we go in, they have even more stuff you can add, more samples. Blend it in. So here, I'm going to put these the triggers together, and I'm going to take them out of the song. And this is why this is useful. If you are mixing multi-track drums, then this is priceless. This is without. There you go. I mean, it is adding volume. I'll make a master bus to show you. You know, and that's okay. I mean, it is adding volume, and those aren't even samples that I even thought about. And for me, I have a lot of presets, and you can save these presets. You can create whatever drum sound you're looking for. The other thing that's cool with Slate is you can add your own samples. Like I've got my own samples here, and this is stuff I've recorded over the years that has worked well for me. And I can even put like snaps and claps and all kinds of stuff. I put electronic sounds in here as well. And so this is really, if you're doing multi-track recording with drums and you start out with something like this, and I mean, I've been there. I started out with multi-track recording where I didn't really know what I was doing with miking drums, or a big part of the drum sound is how they sound in the room. If they sound like crap in the room, they're going to sound like crap on the recording. Your microphones are just picking up what you're doing. And then from there, it's kind of an art form as to how you're going to mic a drum set and all that stuff. But these are a shortcut. And for me, when I first heard something like this kick drum, that's a pretty good one. It's a little clicky for my taste, but when I first heard something like that versus what I recorded, which was this, I mean, that's not going to cut it. And so adding something like these triggers to a recording, it's just a massive improvement, and it's hard to match that. And so for me, there was a point where when I was just recording drums, I would put a 57 in the kick because I knew I was going to pull up this plugin here and find a sound that sounded a lot closer to what I wanted. Since I've kind of learned how to record drums, and I'm starting to go for tone from the beginning, so I know what I'm shooting for. But if you don't know what you're doing yet, or you're just learning, these triggers can tremendously help you get a better mix going fast. There's not much that's going to be done. I mean, I don't know any other plugin that can make this drum sound that fast. I mean, I just saved myself, hours upon hours of headaches with triggers. So triggers are used to replace drum sounds, and that's what this software does. This software gives you a sample, and it's triggered by whatever your drummer played. And so it triggers a sample, and that's what drum triggering is. And this is the best way I know to do it. There are other ways. And also, when I get like a sample or a loop, I'll take that loop and I'll cut the kick part and I'll make a trigger for that as well if I want something a little bit bigger in the chorus or whatever. You can do it with stereo track recording too, but this is mostly for when you're recording drums and you have a mic on a kick, snare, tom, and then the overheads, you can't really do anything about that. You could trigger a cymbal if you wanted to, and I have done that. But overall, this is for multi-track recording. That's what Slate triggers are for, and they're very useful. So if you're into recording drums, then this is a great plugin to have.